Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a Canada-based singer-songwriter with a lot of passion. With a list of noteworthy recognitions and achievements, it's hard to believe she's only 16. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I always like to start with where your kind of story with music all started.
All right. So I've been making music for pretty much since I can walk, though that wasn't something that was known. I started watching Alvin and the Chipmunks when I was maybe 5 or 6, and it's kind of odd to start with this, but I love music. I I was inspired by Katy Perry, by Jackie Evancho, by Krista Berg when I was a kid. My mom would play opera CDs, mostly by Jackie Evancho, before I would go to sleep, and I was just hypnotized by it. Um, and my dad would sing me "The Spanish Train" by Krista Berg every night before I was going to sleep for a few years, and that's kind of where I developed questions as to where do these songs come from? You know, how do people make these songs? How do people tell stories? And that specific song, "The Spanish Train," kind of changed my thinking towards music because I was introduced to pop and opera, and I never understood storytelling and folk music. No one had ever spoken to me about that kind of music until then. And going back to Alvin and the Chipmunks, which was kind of just out there. Um, I was watching, I don't remember which movie I was watching, but they were writing songs. And I had this light bulb go off in my head. And I was like, that's where it comes from. That's where music comes from. That's how people create it, because I'd always listened to it and I'd always appreciated it. Um, but I never really understood, where it came from. And that's the story I usually like to tell people when it comes to me being inspired as a child. Um, but there's more to the story. But as a basic introduction, when people ask me and I'm getting personal about my childhood, I like to put that out there.
Alvin and the Chipmunks taught you that this is how music is made.
Yeah. Alvin and the Chipmunks taught me, uh, led me to where I am today. Thank you, Alvin. Bless your soul. Um, all that to say, I started writing poetry when I was maybe 6 years old. I had already picked up reading early. My parents used to read to me every night, and I was reading fluently by 3, 4 years old, and I think that kind of led me to my passion for writing. Eventually, I put it aside because grade 2 was a busy year for me. It's a lot of homework, busy life, and then I I spent a summer at day camp when I was 9 years old, and there was a guy with a guitar. His name was Ethan, and Ethan worked at our local ice cream shop. And Ethan came in there. I recognized him, and he said, "All right, everybody, I'm a music teacher, and today I'm going to teach you how to write a song." And I got super excited. People just didn't want to be there, but I was super excited. And he taught us how to rhyme, and that songs come from poetry, which are basically rhymes with meaning to it, because that's how you explain it to a group of little kids. And he was the example. There was a dog who turned into a frog who hopped on the log. Though I didn't really get meaning, I didn't really understand that there was meaning to that sentence. I still understood what he was conveying, and I was um I was feeling things as a 9-year-old. Um I was sad about friendship breakups as a 9-year-old, and I wrote a song called Chance, about wanting to see a friend who used to go to your camp, who doesn't go to your camp anymore, and that I'd have a chance to see them again. And I was halfway through the song, and I sang it in front of everybody, and that's how I knew I wanted to do this. And I kept doing it. I begged my dad for guitar lessons when I was turning 9, and I was learning guitar. And I took guitar lessons with an awesome guitarist. His name is Josh Goldman. He's based out of Toronto, Canada. But he went on tour with his band, so I had to pause that for a bit. And eventually, when I was 11, I wrote a song. I was asked to write a song for a school event, and there was a choir from halfway across the world who came to sing with us, and they needed a song, and so we put that song out there, and I sang it with a teenage choir in front of my elementary school. And long story short, my parents got a call saying, "Hey, your daughter was invited to a whole other country to record a song that she wrote with a choir." And my parents were like, "What?" They were just so confused. Like it was just put out there, and they knew I was playing guitar. They knew I liked music. They didn't know I wrote songs. Um so that was a very interesting dinner with my parents when I had to explain myself. So that's where it all started. And yeah.
So, at what point in that kind of timeline, whether it was in this midst of things or afterwards, did you decide, okay, like, I don't want to just be like messing around with this anymore? Like, writing songs is like what I want to keep doing, and I want to like start putting them out and that kind of thing. Like, when did you kind of decide this is something I want to do for real and I want to do like the artist thing?
So I'd say after that moment, I realized that, this can't be it. I can't just sit here in my bed writing songs. There has to be more to this. Um, and I begged my parents to play a show. And they they straight up told me, like, "Hey, we just found out you do this. I don't think that's a good idea." So I begged them, and I kept writing, and I kept trying to prove myself to them, even though they do. They didn't feel like I was ready to be in the music industry, which I wasn't. I was, I had no clue about how people react to things, about how people perceive things, because I was a little kid. Um and eventually my parents said, "You know what? You've shown us you've shown us that you really care about this. Let's post up a YouTube video." So I was 12, and I had my ukulele, and I told my dad, "I want to play this song. I want you to post it on YouTube." And it was a song called Thrive that I wrote on the ukulele. It's upbeat, and it was intense, and I was in makeup and a dress because I was about to go to a party. Um and my dad likes to play around with camera, so he went back and forth in my face, and it was a super intense video. And eventually everybody saw it. Everybody I knew saw it. Everybody I knew that I made music. And I realized that people actually looked up to me. And then I just kept writing because I knew that people would hear that. I love telling stories, and I love writing, and it's something that's always been a part of me. And I just I had to put it out there. It wouldn't be fair of me. I'm a storyteller.
What do you think inspires a lot of your writing?
So I get inspired by pretty much anything that kind of ticks off that little box in my brain. Like I've written about my personal experiences. I've written about stories that I've heard from others, or conflicts, or society, and how society impacts, like, or society's views impact me as a person. Um, I've written about my dreams. I've written about my nightmares. I've written about my fears. I think writing about fears is something I enjoy the most. Um, because when a fear triggers something, I can manipulate the words into something I don't even understand. Um, and my debut album has a lot of fear kind of coinciding inside it. It's a lot of my fears that I've experienced over the years as a kid, as a young teenager. Um, so I like writing about my fears.
More than anything else?
more than anything else. It's my favorite thing. That and um things that make people that turn people's heads. That's one of my favorite things to write about.
Like what? Like what do you mean when you say
Like
turn people's heads?
when you see a little kid with a guitar who's singing about something that's taboo or something that isn't necessarily talked about that often, it turns people's heads. um I remember when I wrote a song called it's called Go Home Johnny. It's on my album. It's not released yet, but when I first wrote it, I was 13. I wrote it about a nightmare, and part of that nightmare included somebody drowning. And I was very explicit about that, very open about that. Um, and I sang it for my dad, and he said, "Oh, you're 13. I I don't know how I feel about you singing this. You're 13." And I just said, "Dad, it's art. It's art." And he realized it was art and became one of his favorite songs of mine because, it's if it scares people, if it scares me, then it's a good song. That's that's what I've learned from writing over the years. If it's scary, then it's good. When people say this is scary good, it's exactly what it is. It's scary good. That's how I evaluate my music.
That's interesting. I've never heard that one before. I've heard scary good before. I've not heard it as, oh, if it's scary, that means it's also good.
If it's scary, then that's I like to evaluate
That's
my music that way.
that's the standard.
It's fun. Yeah, I'm a folk artist though, so I don't think I mean, I don't put labels on myself as
Hmm.
an artist because I've dabbled in many genres. Like currently my album that I'm putting out is folk, but I have fully mixed, mastered, and produced pop songs just chilling in my notes app, just waiting to be released that I've worked on over the past years. But I'm waiting to put them out because I've got this music first.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say that's the most chaotic thing about me as an artist is that I can't choose a genre. I just I'm influenced by many, and I can't pick. I love music, and I think it's unfair that the music industry kind of expects artists to stick within a niche or within a genre. Um, I like to kind of swim between it.
Well, that'll make this next question fun.
Okay,
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would you call it?
what would I call it? Okay, um, that's a hard question.
It's a
You
fun one
caught me.
though.
Okay, it's a fun one. I would call it. Let me think about this one.
Hmm.
I would say, I was trying to mix up the words fear and alternative, and it gave me fart alternative. No, it gave me like fart falternative.
Alternative.
Falternative. That's just it doesn't click,
It sounds almost like it would be like fake alternative, and you don't want that.
Yeah. No, I was trying to mix up fear and folk and alternative, but I don't know if I would put myself in a mold, and I don't know if I'd include folk in that. So I'd say um alternative indie rock, but
Okay.
that's all that already
But
exists.
yeah.
Yeah, that already exists. You know what? I'll say alternative indie rock because
Okay.
alternative kind of implements that fear and folk and fear. So alternative indie.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, I got it.
yeah, it's
That
I can't think of that. I'll get back to you. You know what? Ask me at the end of this interview. Maybe I'll be able to answer you.
Okay. Is there a release that you think is the best embodiment of who you are as an artist? Like if you had to just show somebody one song and be like trying to convince them that to be like another fan of yours, what song do you show them?
I off the bat, I always stick with my first single, 18.
tell me to heal? If I were mad, would you tell me to steal? If I were naive, would you tell me to skip my second meal? I haven't been asked this cause they know me well. I'm not stupid enough to fall under their spell. There will be a day when I'm too old to ask for help. But what do I do when I'm all alone? And by the law, I'm considered grown. When I try to call, they don't pick up the phone. Cause I'm young at heart and a morbid soul. What do I do when I'm 18 and I can't get no one to save me? If I end up not choosing wisely, how the hell am I gonna fall asleep? I don't want no one to hurt me, whether it be a friend or a memory. What'll be with my anxiety and everything that's bottled up inside of me when I'm 18? Oh, when I'm 18. When I'm 18. When I'm 18.
It represents me as an artist and as a writer, and you can hear that through the lyrics. I'll talk about it after, but it's 18 all the way.
Do you think from a like sonic and like stylistic perspective, that is an accurate representation of like what you have in store, whether that be already made or what you intend on writing beyond what you have already in the bank?
So I would say from what I have released,
Mhm,
18 is a great representation of what I do, what I like to do. But
mhm,
at the same time, this album was recorded when I was 14 with songs that I wrote around that time. Um, and in the past 2 years, I've developed as an artist and as a songwriter, and I've written songs that I'm just so proud of, but I can't show anyone those songs yet because I'm trying to promote the music I already have out there.
mhm.
But to be honest, there's this one song that there's two songs that come to mind. Um, there's this one song that I wrote like very recently that's just, you know, it's like it's pop. It's pop, but on the guitar. And I've never done that. When I write pop songs, I stick to pop. But I kind of mixed genres with that song, and I love doing that through my music. And I think that song, that one song, is the best representation of me kind of swimming through genres, I like to call it. And there's also this one unreleased song I have. It's called Daddy's Money. And I know that's a questionable title, but there's an interesting story behind it. Um, so when I went to record my album, I drove with my dad 18 hours away from where I am in Montreal. We drove to Nova Scotia, which is all the way on the other side of the country. And when we had finished recording this album with Mark Howard, who's really just such a good person, such an incredible recording engineer, and really has such a strong ear for music, I have to say. Um, when we finished that album, I was waiting for our car to be fixed. Something had happened. We were outside of a garage, and I was like, I want to write a song about a father messing up his children's lives. And my dad's like, "Oh, hi. I sure do hope this is not about me." And I'm like, "No, Dad, don't worry, don't worry." I even I wrote it while he was just watching me. And eventually I had Daddy's Money, which is the darkest song I've written. I played it for the people who were working there. Um, and I think their reactions are why I continued writing. Once again, going back to that question about what drove me to continue writing. It's the reactions. It's seeing, blank stares on people's faces, but seeing them be excited about it. Um, I love capturing people's attention when I'm performing, not when I'm not performing, because that would sound odd if I just full on said I like catching people's attention. But when I'm on stage, when I'm in the moment and I'm playing something that I wrote, I want people's attention to be captured. See I want to see people's eyes just stare blankly and process what I'm singing about, process what I'm saying. It means a lot to me as an artist, and I know it must mean a lot to you too, because you know what I mean. You really do.
Yeah, I'm still just sitting on that whole Danny's money thing, and I'm just like, your dad must have been like, damn, this is what's happening.
My dad enjoyed it. He enjoyed it, but it was also kind of, shocking because like, where did you learn this stuff from, Rachel?
Yeah.
The
And at
internet.
16.
It's
Damn.
it's fun to write because I get reactions like that. I haven't even played you the song yet,
No.
but I said the title and
Well, yeah, that'll do it.
that'll do it.
That'll do it.
I like
for
doing
sure.
that with my music.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
That's a hard one. I'm gonna tell you what people have told me in the
Okay.
past. So when I was in another story, but when I was in Nova Scotia and I was recording with Mark Howard, he's met some pretty cool people. He's worked with very, very cool people who I've never met, like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and the Neville brothers, though we've never met personally. Sometimes I'm joking. I wasn't in that era. I wasn't alive yet.
Yeah.
But I've listened to their music before. It's not something I grew up with, but I recognize the talent. And before I was there, like I heard some of their stuff and it was awesome. But being there after I sang my first song and we recorded it, Mark sat me down and he said, you write like a 40-year-old woman. And I think that was one of the best compliments that I've received. He then proceeded to compare me to Joni Mitchell. So I'd say my music is a mix of Joni Mitchell's storytelling, Noah Kahan's melodies, because I'm inspired by him. I've been listening to his music for a few years now, and just it touches the soul, and that's what I want my music to do. And as a third artist, it's a hard one. I'd say I have a bit of Lady Gaga in there. I've been listening to her since I was a kid, and even though I'm not a pop star, I don't have what she has. I like to twist with people's minds through my writing, and so does she. She likes to do that through her artistry. So I'd like to throw her in there. I'd say Joni Mitchell, Noah Kahan, and Lady Gaga. And I never thought I'd be asked that question, but there's my answer.
I mean, with the making people turn their heads, the Lady Gaga definitely makes sense.
I love her for that. She's awesome. I love her new stuff, especially her old stuff. It never gets old. It's all classic.
Yeah, she is always doing something new. So
yeah, I love her for that.
What is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
An outside passion of mine. I love laughing. I don't think it's like a passion, but I love laughing. I like to joke around, and I like laughing at my music. I like laughing at things that I care about. I'm a duck enthusiast. I love ducks. I'm obsessed with ducks. My room is yellow. I have a collection of rubber ducks. Since I was a little kid. And I was teased for it. And I didn't understand why, but now that I'm getting older, when kids see something that's different, they like to laugh at it. And because of that, I started to laugh at myself. And I I realized that making light out of something that's just not something that I can laugh at is something I enjoy. I love laughing at myself. I like laughing at things that don't make sense to laugh at, like songs that I write or words that I use. I can sometimes come up with a random word and laugh about it for hours. It's just it's something I I consider a hobby because laughing is funny. I love comedy. I love watching comedians. Though I can't name you any of them, I can listen to comedians for hours. They're just so entertaining. Um, so I love laughing. I love comedy. Um, and I love adding little comedic lines in my music. I don't know how to describe it, but sometimes I like adding some light in the intensity of what I do.
It's interesting because of the whole point we were talking about earlier with your favorite thing to write about is fear. And you don't
Yeah.
usually put fear and like humor necessarily in the same bucket.
Yeah.
But here we are.
I mean, if I'm so scared of what I do, I have to make light of it in one way. So laughing. I love laughing with my friends and my family. And, I like having people laugh about um things I create because it's just I don't know how to explain it. I feel empowered as an artist because when people laugh at something, it means they care about it. When I laugh at something, I care about it. I think it's interesting. And if someone's laughing at me, or even if they're laughing with me, they care. So I'd say just laughing. It's not a hobby, but it's fun in certain contexts. Not always. I don't laugh at everything. I laugh at myself, but it takes a lot to make me laugh when it comes to other things, to other people. That's why I love comedy because I find it funny. It's entertaining and it works. It does make me laugh. So sometimes.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I haven't really like I've never heard that perspective. Like if people are laughing, they care about it, but that's kind of like I like that. Like that's an interesting kind of thought process.
I like to think about it that way because it it helps in a way where I don't put myself down as an artist.
Hmm.
I encourage it because if you're laughing at something, then you're interested. It takes a long time to laugh at something. So
Fair
it
enough.
catches people's attention.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. What is the ideal listening scenario for someone to consume your music in? Like if you were to set the scene perfectly, what
I
would
like
you
dark scenes. I like dark colors. I like when the lights are dim and when it's an evening and you know when you've had a long day and you either need something to focus on or you need something to bring you up. And I like I think that's the best place, the best scenario where you could capture people's attention, where you can where I can truly express myself as an artist. It's my favorite place to be. I I love the daytime, but when when I feel dark around me, it once again evokes that fear. I've always been somewhat scared of the dark, and that fear kind of motivates me and pushes me, and it helps me perform. Um, and whenever I'm on stage, I usually ask for purple or blue lights because those are dark, intense colors, and that drives me. It's a driving force. I was just learning about that in science class, but it's a driving force. Not science, history. It drives me as an artist. It it pushes me. It motivates me. And I love being in the audience when that's the scene. So I also love when I'm on stage and everything is dark and intense and there's lighting. but the lighting is also dark and intense. And it doesn't matter what music I'm singing. It doesn't matter if it's happy or if it's sad or if it's intense or angry. It's just, I love that background. I love that. I love that vibe. I really do.
I think that kind of is fitting, like you said, with the whole fear thing. And I think kind of as like being darker colors, it kind of makes everything a little bit more minimal rather than like anything super bright and like attention grabbing in that like that visual sense. So
Yeah.
by having those sort of darker colors, it's really kind of allowing for what is supposed to be at the main stage be at the main stage.
I also find it a lot more simple. It's simpler, and I consider myself a pretty simple artist. Um, I like to I love when there's a backing track. I love when there's a band, but I also love when it's just me and my guitar and a crowd of people who are just not expecting that. Because usually there's more than just a person with a guitar. So that once again, it's kind of scary just being having yourself to rely on. But I like that. It drives me.
Yeah, I think like honestly, this sometimes the simpler it is, almost the better it is. Like it doesn't have to always be this big production. It doesn't have to always have 10,000 layers to it. It can really just
Yeah.
be simplified down to the source, and that can be more than enough.
That's my album. I my album, The Next Big Invention, which is not completely out yet, but there are 5 songs that are out on all platforms. It's an acoustic live style folk album. So it's really just me and my guitar and harmonies, nothing else. And it's it's not usually from what I've seen where most artists um start out. Usually people start out in the pop industry, but because of like my all the time I took sitting in this seat with my guitar, it felt right. If that's what I wanted to do, and it felt right. Um I just I really like simplicity. Not necessarily in fashion choices, but otherwise I really like simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it almost anymore, I feel like simplicity kind of can almost catch more attention because anymore a lot of things are a bunch of layers, a bunch of different things are going on. So kind of like having that change of pace where it's just kind of stripped down to this basic idea will
Yeah.
almost make you listen more intently.
Yeah, 100%. And I can tell you that from the perspective of a listener and not as an artist or as somebody who's been listening to music before they were making music. I I think simplicity in a person and an artist just catches my attention. And I like showing others what I like. So if something attracts me as a listener, then it inspires me as an artist.
I like that. What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
I like to tell people that I'm a storyteller. I cut out what doesn't need to be there, and I just everything that I do, and I don't know if this sets me apart, but I feel like internally it makes me feel stronger. Everything that I do is because I wanted to do it. Every song that I make is something that I wanted to make, is something that I was or I am passionate about. Um I do it I do this for myself, not just for others, but I do this because I really love it. Um, but I would say just the fact that I I really just I put everything I have into this. Everything I am. I put my whole being in this. And I know some artists do, but it just to me it feels important in that sense.
I mean, I think That's kind of the best way you can kind of approach it, is like if you're doing something that doesn't really matter that much to you, or anything about it doesn't really matter that much to you, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So having that sort of importance maintained throughout is like a huge, and should like stay a like driving kind of factor. Um
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm a creator. I create. It's what I meant to do. And I know some people just see it as a hobby or see it as something that's fun, but I see it as like why I was put here. What's my purpose in life, you know?
No, absolutely. um I think if that's I mean, I think having that sort of mindset kind of makes it even more really like stick, like in the sense of like,
Yeah.
if this is what I'm meant to do, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. No one can take it away from me.
Mm-hmm.
No one can change it because no matter what, I'll always be making music. Doesn't matter
Absolutely.
how, but it's something I will always be doing.
What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
I want people to remember me. I want I want people to see me once and never forget it. I want I want to capture people's attention and play with their senses and catch their ears and catch their eyes. Um I want to show people that you don't need a massive stage and backup dancers and everything to be seen, to be heard. That sometimes you could just be somebody with a guitar or somebody with a voice leading a group of people who are watching you. And that anyone could anyone can be an artist.
I mean, yeah, it's it's not for the faint of heart, but they're like, it's like anything else. Like it's like one of those things where if it's something that you want, it's something that
Yeah,
you work for, who's to say it can't be?
I agree with you. Yeah, I just I want to I want to show people that it's okay to push through. To it's okay to care about what you care about or to show people that you care about what you care about. Um it's it's okay to express yourself. That's something that I like to put out there. I love expressing myself as an artist through my writing, my makeup, my clothes. And I want to show people that. I want people to know that. And I like that's my motto as a human being, even. Like not just be yourself, but be creative.
Absolutely. I think that brings us to the final question, which is ultimately the concept behind the podcast, which
All
is,
right.
why music?
It's it's who I am. It's it's what runs through my veins. It's what drives me as a person, and it allows me to connect with myself internally while connecting with the rest of the world, which is something that as a kid like doesn't seem possible. It's like a fragment of your imagination. And music makes your I mean, this is kind of corny, but music makes your dreams come true. It doesn't matter how big you are as an artist, how small you are as an artist. You could just be standing there at a cafe with your guitar and things will happen that you would have never thought can. You could be on a live stream and you can be connected with people that you never thought you would. And that happened to me. I met people who changed my life through live streaming, through making music, and through not thinking that that would happen. um So I just say music is my purpose.
I,
It's who I am.
yeah, I mean, I think that's all it really can boil down to ultimately.
Yeah.
That's about as I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Um,
Simple. It's as simple as that.
yeah,
I love music because it's just as simple as it can be, but also as complicated as you want it to be.
very true.
Yeah. Period. End of story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for having me. Take care.